you directly. But thank you so much all for coming to my talk today. So what we're going to be exploring is what I phrase facilitating inclusive learning communities. So this is where we have been looking at using focus writing retreats at a programme level on my programme here at the Business School at the University of Exeter. So this is me, I'm Sian Robinson. I'll do a very quick introduction, a bit more of myself. So I am a lecturer in human resource management here at the Business School. I've been here full-time for, I want to say, maybe 2.5 years. My judgment of time passing is not very good. I have ADHD. You're going to find out all about that in a moment. But yes, so around 2.5 years. I, however, have been working here as an adjunct for probably closer to 5 years. I have got the very obviously enviable role of being the programme director for our BSc Business Studies and BSc Business Management. So these are our two incredibly large programmes in the Business School. I've been doing that for the last year or so, and then prior to that I was the deputy programme director for two of our master's programmes, the MSc in HRM and the MSc in International HRM. So they were much smaller programmes with about 50 and 70 students on respectively. But this is me, and that picture of me there is actually me smiling at my future husband-to-be at our engagement shoot, where I looked like I feel like I actually looked happy. So there's me. So what are we going to be covering in today's talk? I've got you for around an hour. I'm hoping to not bombard you with too much information, but there's going to be a bit. So the plan is to go through some of the context of why we brought in and started using these focus writing retreats. I'm then going to give you a short story from my point of view of why I started them and how that's worked. We'll then do a deep dive on the focus writing retreats themselves, how they work, what's been going well, student feedback, and then thinking about some of the challenges that we face. A quick discussion then on what the plans are next for our project here that we've been working on, and also an opportunity for a Q&A. And then I'm going to say, with slight trepidation, there is potentially a chance to have a go at a focus writing retreat, but that depends on how long I talk for and how many questions there are. So we'll see how that goes as we go along during the session. So context, always very important. So this is our starting point essentially. So as I said, I am the programme director for two of the programmes here at the Business School. The first one is our BSc Business and Management. So this is the largest programme in the Business School, potentially the largest programme in the university. I believe some of the psychology programmes might be pushing the sort of numbers that we've got, but I think we're actually the biggest. And I also lead the BSc Business Studies. So this is much smaller. We've only got about 50 students on this. So this is a more specific programme that is for our direct entry students that top up from Exeter College. So they do a now foundation degree, an ordinary degree, and then come and top up in their third and final year with us here at the university, which is actually the route that I came through to come to the university. And it's also used as an alternative exit programme. So if students haven't managed to complete or pass all of their compulsory modules, sometimes they'll be moved onto this programme, so they come out with a degree. So when I said that these are large programmes, they really are. So combined, these two programmes have over 1,200 students on them. That is including those who are away on their third year placement if they've chosen to go for one, so those on with industry experience or with year abroad placement. And these numbers are only growing. We have got a massive rise in applications for undergraduate students coming in, so I'm expecting this to get bigger as time goes on. So although that's absolutely fantastic, having a big programme is great, it's really fun, it's really engaging, but it also brings all sorts of challenges. Here, we're going to focus on some of those student-facing challenges. So as you can see, the Mentimeter has worked perfectly. Nice day for technology today. So here are some of the answers that those of you who are here at the start of the session have added in. So some challenges that we've got here. Providing one-to-one support, definitely a massive challenge that we face, because I can't provide the same level of support to each student on a programme of over 1,000 students as I would if I was leading a programme with, say, 20, 50, 100 students on. Managing teams of lectures to ensure consistency, definitely. So I'm quite lucky in my role that I don't directly manage lecturers. So that's more managing teams will come on lecturers who are leading big modules rather than big programs. But I definitely have things to do with my staff as well. Communication understanding for students, definitely. Tailoring learning for individual needs and the number of ILPs, yeah, definitely. So our individual learning plans, there are plenty of them. So this is what makes it even more important for us to be creating an inclusive learning environment. We have got their engagement written 3 times. Yes, definitely. Those of you who are working as academics currently, whether you're here at the University of Exeter or elsewhere, you will probably be facing the same challenges that we're facing, that actually engagement can be really tricky. And we've got engagement more specifically with online, and then there are risks of it feeling impersonal. Yes, a cookie cutter approach and students drifting and detaching. Fantastic. All of you seem to have a really good idea of the challenges that we are facing leading this big program. When I say we, I should highlight that I lead this program with a deputy program director who supports me, who is my colleague, Dr. Isbana Naz, who is amazing. So luckily I'm not in this on my own. But these are some of the key areas that I would highlight are challenges for leading a program of this size. The first 2 are building a cohort identity, so making them feel like they're actually part of one cohort, whilst also trying to create a learning community. There are so many students, you can't even get them all in the room at the same time. You could only just get some of each of the years in a room at the same time. So our biggest lecture theatre here at the university, the alumni theatre, is what, 400-ish capacity maybe? So that doesn't even fit all of our students in. The second one we've got there is student engagement, but that's both in learning, so actually turning up to lectures and turning up to seminars and focusing on their learning, but also we really struggle with getting them to turn up to programme level events. If things aren't directly aligned with something that is to do with their assessments, quite often they don't engage. And then down the bottom there, we've got difficulties with providing effective communication, because I'm talking to loads of people. So when I was leading the smaller programs, I would know nearly every student by name. I would speak to them in person on a weekly basis because I was teaching them in person every week. And that is not doable with a cohort of 1,000 to 1,200 students. Same with the ideas that you were all coming up with there, that actually it's really hard to personalize for that many students, to make them feel included, to make them feel supported, and really know the students themselves and their needs. And then we also have the wonderful joy that is student satisfaction and NSS, which is something that we focus on. So what I've done here is broken down, we'll ignore whatever Mentimeter's doing, broken down these into 3 different areas that we kind of are focusing on, and have kind of shoehorned these into for what we need to think about when we are trying to support a large program. So that first one is about building community. The second one is about outcomes, so making sure that students are engaging to have, hopefully, them have increased outcomes. And when I say outcomes, I mean outcomes both in terms of increased attainment, actually achieving their degrees, and also their well-being and mental health. And then down the bottom there, we've got providing support. So different things from communication to, as we said, satisfaction and personalization, and giving them the support that they need. So as I said, fantastic role, but actually really rather challenging in terms of how we do things. So what have we been doing? I came into the role a year ago. I started planning for coming into the role in about May last year, and then I took over the role officially in September. So we decided to put in place a range of pilots to test and see how they went, because realistically, you never know if it's going to work or not. So the first thing we did was have a look at reframing student support and increasing its accessibility. So this was through our Toolkit for Success project, where we brought together all the different areas and tools for success and reframed it to try and reduce those barriers that students might actually kind of hit and approach when they were trying to get support. So that could be cultural barriers, almost anything, but that's been put in place this year. And again, as one of those ideas that I can't personally provide support for 1,200 students. So we needed to give them a way of clear signposting and them understanding where they might need to go. The second thing we did was create an interactive and regularly updated program hub for information sharing. So the picture over on the side of the screen right now, This is an image of what our hub looks like. It's a SharePoint communication site, so it's really interactive. That essentially replaced their LE page or their online learning page if you're not at Exeter, so that they could find all the information they needed, and also news and everything with events. So it was trying to simulate that regular contact without them seeing me face to face every single week. We then moved into, and the focus of today's session, which is why you are hopefully all here, looking at programme events. So we have a range of programme events that we run for the cohort. These range from meet and eats, which are a once a month session where we go to the cafe in the business school and they get given a free drink and a free cake or a free snack. My favourite is a cup of tea and a salted caramel flapjack. If you haven't been to Latouche and had one, they are amazing. And they come and have a chat with us and chat with their peers and see how they're getting on. We also ran online Q&As, your Toolkit for Success workshops that link back to that toolkit I was just speaking about. And then the main thing that I'm here to discuss today, which is our facilitated focus writing retreats. What you can see here is a schedule of our term 2 programme events that we ran for the last academic term. So as you can see, regularly running each of these types of events for the cohort. Yes, it's very busy, before anybody asks that in chat. So there's an idea of the context of what we're playing with when we're looking at the size of programme that I'm currently running. Now, I would like to pop in to just start with a short little story of why are we actually using focus writing retreats? Why did this even come up? So this image here I've created, this is a snapshot of what my brain looks like. I have ADHD. That means I am chaotic. That means that my brain is this weird, squiggly, soupy mess that's constantly going like this. It's fantastic in some ways. It means that I'm really creative. It means that I am really enthusiastic. I'm really curious. I'm really empathetic. It also means I'm really good at problem solving, and I see problems that other people might not necessarily even see. And I can draw links between those things and go, hey, this is how this looks like, or this is something that will help people. However, it also means that I have something that's known as executive dysfunction, along with all sorts of other equally difficult things like rejection sensitive dysphoria, but we're not getting into that one today. So if you haven't heard the term executive dysfunction, this is a term that's used to describe faults or weaknesses in the cognitive process that organizes thoughts, activities, prioritizes tasks, manages time efficiently, and makes decisions. So basically, my brain sometimes doesn't work all that great at doing certain things, unfortunately. So I then thought to myself, what's the best way to represent what executive dysfunction feels like? And I should probably clarify, I'm a millennial, so we tend to communicate through memes. So I've got some executive dysfunction memes here for you, just to give you a feel of, if you don't have ADHD, this is what it feels like. So we've got some here. ADHD is knowing you have a deadline, wasting time for 8 hours, then neglecting all your body's basic needs until it's done. That is a literal example of being paralyzed, knowing you've got a task that you need to be able to do, but you can't do it. You physically can't start it. And then suddenly there is a deadline. So you have adrenaline that kicks in and then means, oh, I can actually focus now. Some others here, things I should be doing, so many things I'm currently doing, not any of those. Another one that I think is incredibly relatable, ADHD is so funny because structure feels like a prison, but if I have no structure, I descend into executive dysfunction and just do nothing for days. I hope that I don't not do anything for days, but I have definitely had to come up with coping mechanisms to make me be able to get routines in place. And that is one of the reasons we're going to come up to in a minute as to why we use focus writing retreats, body doubling, and co-working. And another thing that's quite weird for people with ADHD is that actually time doesn't make that much sense. And if you are doing something that is really difficult or not very interesting, it's really hard. And genuinely, this meme here, 1 hour here is 7 years on Earth. It really does feel like that. And I added one here for hopefully that's maybe a bit more relatable to all of the academics in the room about procrastination, because ADHD is essentially a chronic form of procrastination that we can't control. So this person here, phew, I did the dishes, I scrubbed the floors, I dusted, I did the laundry, plus I organised all that. And then somebody asked them, how's the paper? Because we tend to do other things than the things that we need to be doing, like potentially writing our academic papers. Mine, honestly, is marking. That's my really big struggle with ADHD executive dysfunction. So I finished communicating through memes now. So what does having ADHD and executive dysfunction mean for me personally? It means that it's really very difficult to start tasks, especially if they are onerous or boring. So if something's going to last for a long time, like let's say I've got 100 papers to mark, I physically cannot get started. I also cannot continue it. So I end up being in a state of paralysis where I just sit there and I can't do anything else because I know that I need to do the marking, but I'm paralyzed. I cannot actually make myself do the thing. I also have massive trouble with regulating focus and prioritizing different tasks. If I'm passionate about something, I will do it for hours. This presentation I was creating until maybe 9:30 last night. That also shows that I've been doing other things and left it till yesterday. ADHD, but it's one or the other. I either can't focus or I hyper focus and forget to do everything that I need to do, like feeding myself and whatever. But now, that's a little context to how my brain works, but here's the actual story. And Hannah's still in here, so I can say this about her. Last summer, I went to an early career academic network event, and I had a fantastic time. I met lots of wonderful people who are part of our early careers team in the business school. It may have even been more specifically in management, which is my department. And I knew that the next day coming up, there was a writing day that had been organised by the Exeter Centre for Leadership. My friend Hannah, who is here, a fellow colleague who is also an academic, said to me, Sian, are you coming to the writing retreat tomorrow? And I said, no, why would I come to the writing retreat? I don't have any writing to do. Like, I don't feel like it's the space for me. I haven't got any writing. I'm an E&S focused staff. I'm teaching focused. I'm not doing any writing. And she just looked at me with a confused look on her face and said, Sian, aren't you writing a textbook? And I went, oh, yeah, actually, yeah, I guess I am. I suppose that counts as writing, you know, writing an entire textbook. So thank goodness she made me realize that actually this writing retreat was a place for me to be able to go. It was something that I was doing as a task. So I decided to go. I went to the writing retreat, used the whole day to focus on writing my textbook, and it was absolutely revolutionary for making me realize what focused writing retreats can do for me. So what they are, before we say what they do, if you've never been to a focused writing retreat or a writing retreat in general, they are traditionally a structured group writing session. Normally they're off campus, so they get you away from the workplace so that you can really focus on writing on what you want to do. So people tend to work in the same room, but they're going to focus on their own work and towards the goals that they've set for the session. So you're working alongside each other, but on your own work in the same room. This is also known as body doubling. So in the neurodiversity community, body doubling is any activity where a group of people get together to work in the same space. So essentially what it does is it supports keeping each other from getting distracted. It provides positive external peer pressure for working and accountability. So why do these focus writing retreats work for my brain? Exactly that. They provide external accountability that I've told someone that I'm doing something. So my brain goes, oh no, there's pressure, I must work. But it's actually really positive peer pressure. It doesn't feel like somebody's there watching over my shoulder. It's just this gentle accountability that I need to get my brain working. It also helps provide reduced distractions. It's a really great environment for focusing. It also makes you feel like you're not alone. I think in academia, both as students and as academics, we quite often work in our own little silos, working from home, and feeling like part of a community or a group is really important. And I get the all-important dopamine from completing tasks. It's amazing. So what I did was I went, oh, these are great. I went to this one writing retreat. I loved it. My friend Hannah then invited me to even more online and they were fantastic. So I'm going to add these to our program level events. I will be honest, I did not go and do any research into them and why they work at this point, because I knew that they worked for me and I thought, oh, this will be a great thing that's going to really help my students. So instead, what I did was retrofit the evidence. So I did the writing retreats, went, oh, these are working well, this is going great. What does the research actually say? So interestingly, writing retreats have mostly been focused and explored in research with focus on academics using them. So research has found that writing retreats can support for creating dedicated writing time. It helps to build collegiality amongst a team. It helps create a community of practice and increases learning through participation. It's also been found to increase publication outputs because they are giving academics a protected time and space to be able to work on writing. And again, that level of having a community of practice and working together doing the same thing is really helpful. It also meant that academics developed how well they could write, and it also gave them benefits for between each other and developing relationships. It also has been shown to positively impact on people's well-being, as well as supporting to mediate well-being threats. There is a little bit of research that's been done on students and focused writing retreats. The majority of this has been looking at PhD students. So again, I would say slightly more in between our students and our academics. So the research into PhD students has found that it can increase writing self-efficacy. So students believing that they can write and write well. It helps them to develop self-regulation with the use of goal setting and time management practices. And that self-regulation, although it happens within a retreat, can then be taken outside and they develop those skills moving forwards. It helps produce positive results to develop writing abilities through, again, a community of practice. Not that I'm using buzzwords. Honestly, it's all in the research, I tell you. And there has been a very brief bit of research. I found 2 papers on exploring this with undergraduates. So there was an exploration of undergraduate researcher students, so dissertation students, and they had found in this paper that the biggest challenge for these students was actually finding the space and time to sit and write their research. So they found that using writing retreats helped to create this space, especially with the lecturer also working during the retreat. They found it supported increasing their productivity, their sense of support from the staff that were working with them, an ability to protect time and space for writing, so both inside and outside of the retreat. So it was almost teaching them the skills that they needed to be able to then take time to really write outside of them. And it gave them an increased capacity to set goals effectively moving forwards. Cunningham, who looked at this research, really recommends that writing retreats should actually be further offered to undergraduates and making sure that they have a community-based approach. We've already spoken a bit about my ADHD. We started with that story, but just as a reminder, actually for neurodiverse people, in particular those with ADHD, body doubling, the use of all of these different things such as co-working and similar concepts really help to be more productive, to be more accountable, and actually get tasks done. So writing focus retreats are a structured form of this, so they're really conducive and inclusive environments for neurodivergent individuals to both work and learn. And it's also been noted that there are actually very few what's viewed as ADHD-centered traditions of learning. So where learning initiatives come from someone who is an ADHD insider, someone who has ADHD, but that these can be really applicable for everyone. So we've got an overview of there was a whistle-stop tour of what the research currently says about focused writing retreats. So we've got this narrowed down here that they are inclusive for neurodivergent people. They support getting tasks done. It helps to create a community, so a community of practice or a community of learning. It builds learning through participation and then also helps to have increased output and productivity. It positively impacts well-being, supports developing self-regulation with goal setting and time management, and provides an increased sense of support. So if we go back to the start, turn your memories back to when we were looking at our different areas of problems, challenges, that's the word we're looking, our different areas of challenge for leading a program of this size. We narrowed these down into community, outcomes, and support. And as you can see here from my very lovely, fancy different coloured boxes, is that the impacts of focused writing retreats actually fit very nice and neatly into those areas that we are saying that we struggle with for leading a big program. So they helped create a sense of community. They help to increase students' learning outcomes. They help to make students feel like they are more supported. So I say we again, that's me and Isbana, my Deputy Programme Director, we decided that we needed to bring focus writing retreats into our programme. You can see on the side here, this is the Student Needs Framework that was developed by Advanced HE back in 2023, so last year. And they have, this Student Needs Framework is broken into two sides. This one side here is belonging and community. Underneath that heading, they have these things: communal settings and community building, meaningful peer relationships, meaningful staff relationships, identifying with interests in the institution, and having a safe space and a place to do things. So they're saying this is what students need to feel like they belong and they are part of a community. And actually, all of these things are what we were aiming to do and achieve through building in focus writing retreats. We were building in a communal setting. We were building in the opportunity for them to have meaningful peer and staff relationships. We were giving them a chance to feel like they were identifying with the institution, and also that specific place and space for them to speak to each other and have time. So we believed when we started this that it would help to build an inclusive learning community, that it was going to help to support students' sense of belonging to their cohort, but also more widely at the university, that they as an individual matter both to staff and their peers, so creating those meaningful relationships, help to give direct access to support both from the programme team and their peers. And we hoped that all of this would then lead into the improved wellbeing as well as improved educational outcomes and satisfaction. So that was our hope, that was our aim when we got there. Again, just going back to our three things that we were talking about, we had challenges with: community, outcomes, and support. You can see again, these are mapping to that. We're trying to build an inclusive learning community. We're trying to help support students to have better outcomes. And we are trying to give them that idea that they matter in the university and that they have support from both colleagues, staff, and their peers in the university. So what do we even do? How do we facilitate these sessions? Half an hour in, and she finally gets to the meat of how we do it. So our sessions, we use the terminology focus writing retreats, because actually we say that these sessions can be useful for any work that the students are undertaking, any work that would benefit from a focused learning environment. That could be reading a textbook, that could be planning an assignment, that could be writing an assignment, it might be doing exam preparation. We had a student come in and he was preparing his applications for jobs when he left university for a graduate. Anything that needed to be focused on could come and be focused on. But the reason why we changed the terminology to focus writing retreats is actually because I felt that writing can be very exclusionary. As we know from my example earlier, I didn't go to the writing retreats that were set up in my department because I was like, I'm not researching, I'm not E&R stuff, I'm not writing a paper, so they're obviously not for me. Now, I will say that was a misconception on my part. The people who run it are absolutely wonderful and incredibly inclusionary, but it's all about making sure that those people who want to come know that they can come and work on anything whilst they're there. So how does it work? We meet in person on campus, so we have a room booked somewhere. Students and staff will set their own goal for the 2-hour session. And when I say students and staff, that's because I work on my own work in that time. I'm not supporting the students to do the work that they're doing because I'm not leading most of their modules. We are literally co-working in the space. So as I said, that could be anything from starting an assignment, writing a plan, catching up on some reading, or anything they need to focus on. So they work individually on that work in the focus sessions, which is 2 lots of 45-minute slots. And then they reflect on their goal at the end of the session. So here's an example of what our timings would look like. We start the session. So the session itself is timetabled for 2 hours. So at the start, we have a 10-minute welcome. Everyone sits down, gets settled, and then we do goal setting. We will invite students to share their goals out loud to the room. At one point, we didn't do that. We said just share it with the people sat next to you, but the students actually felt that they wanted to share their goal with everyone. So that's what we've carried on with doing. But there's no pressure. If students don't want to share, then they don't have to. We then move into a focus period of 45 minutes. This is quiet working time. So we say, everybody work quietly on your own goals. We then have a 10-minute break in the middle, so everybody gets to go to the toilet, get some food, get a drink, do whatever they need to do, but also it gives you an opportunity to adjust your goals if needed. So if you're not managing to like succeed, that's the wrong word, but if you're not managing to do as much as you were hoping you were going to, you can adjust that down to something that's more manageable. Or if you've already finished your goal, you can add a new one, and you can share these if you want to. We then move into a second focus period of another 45 minutes. Again, same thing, quiet working for 45 minutes, everybody co-working alongside each other on their own tasks. And then at the end, we have a 10-minute reflection where we conclude the session. Everybody goes around, and if they want to share, they can, and they let us know how well they've got on with their goals. This is done in a really supportive manner. If people feel like they haven't met that goal, that's completely fine. We congratulate them on well done for making the progress that you've made. That's fantastic. Every little bit that you've managed to do is a step forwards. Well done. We also provide a free lunch as a group. It's either before or after the session, depending on the time of day. The students tend to prefer afterwards, and so do I. This is funded by our Associate Dean of Education in the Business School. And actually, it's an absolutely key part of these sessions. We did ask students at one point if they felt like they would still turn up to the session if they didn't have a free lunch. Some of them, half of them said they would, half of them said no, they wouldn't turn up if they didn't have a free lunch. But that's because they're also managing to build community in those sessions that isn't just based around the learning. The learning's fantastic, but they go into that lunch and they sit around and they talk to people that they maybe haven't met before. It's really fantastic. I probably should not wax lyrical too hard, but I love these sessions if it hasn't come across yet. So these are the resources we use. It is not hard to run a focus writing retreat at all. On the right-hand side, you have got my poster, that I send out to them to say, hey, this is the day that we're doing a focus writing retreat. Come and see us. Come and do this stuff. If you struggle to concentrate or if you want to work in the learning community, please come. And then in the sessions, we literally use 4 slides. We have a starting slide that's up when they come in. We then give them a very brief introduction to what the session entails, just in case they haven't been before, if they need a reminder. We then have the timing slide up on the board for the rest of the session, so they know exactly what they're doing, and if they get confused or they go out for a bit and have to come back, which is completely fine, then they know where we're at. And then at the end, we just ask if they want to have or if they have any questions, and then we go and have lunch afterwards. So it's really simple. Some key considerations though, and there's one that I remembered that I didn't add to this slide and I should have done, so I'm going to say it first so I don't forget it. The first one is, if you're booking in these sessions, I do not recommend booking them in a lecture room. If they are in a lecture room, a lecture theatre, the students cannot get comfortable even though they've got the small little desks. And that was some feedback we had from one of our sessions, was that they wanted somewhere more comfortable. So classrooms tend to work better. These sessions are open to all students. So although they're particularly helpful for neurodivergent students, everybody is welcome. We don't aim this specifically at anyone. It is open to the entirety of the cohort. So that helps for neurodivergent people to feel like they're more of a community. And when you get to the end and everyone's using this as a tool, you go, oh, okay, actually, this is really helpful for everyone. And it makes you feel part of the group. The atmosphere that we try to create in the sessions is positive and productive. So we do ask for quiet during the focus periods to minimize distractions. But if students want to discuss a project, we just say, we suggest you pop outside into the corridor and have a chat. And there's no pressure for that. People can get up and leave whenever they want. They can enter when they want. It's just about keeping that noise down so that everybody can focus. As staff, we work alongside the students whilst they are working, and we work on our own work. So I've been in these sessions doing marking, not of any of the students that are in the group. I've been in the sessions catching up on emails, writing my textbook. So it actually gives us some dedicated space and time as academics to work. And I think the students also really value seeing us working. That may sound silly, but it makes them feel like we are part of that community with them as well. We give people options to make sure that the session is inclusive and works for them. So for example, we recommend the use of headphones or earplugs if they have noise sensitivities. I get really bad noise sensitivities, especially if I'm in a situation where there's like just constant tappy noise around me and it's otherwise quiet. So I will wear noise cancelling headphones with normally thunderstorm sounds. But it's completely fine for students to do what works for them. And also if they need to have extra breaks, that's also fine. As I said a moment ago, lunchtime is a key time to socialise as well as work. So it really allows those relationships to develop between the students. When we first started the sessions, they were both in person and online, but online attendance was actually really low to non-existent. So we have mostly focused on in person for now, which I find fascinating because many of the co-working or body doubling type writing retreats that I go to are online with staff, and we find that really useful, but the students seem to really like in person. And I would say, although these are fantastic, they are used as a wider suite of programme events. So there is higher attendance to these than some of the other programme events that we have, and we think that's likely due to their applied nature to the students' outcomes. They know if they come that they're making really good progress on their own work, their writing, whatever they want to focus on, and it's not necessarily just socialising. It's tying it in with what they are going to achieve. So they really like that. So what do the students actually say about our focus writing retreats? So this is a brief anonymous feedback that we did for one of our sessions. So this was 16 students, and we asked them the following and asked them to rate them from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So the focus writing retreats give me space to focus on my learning and work, provide a focused and conducive environment for work, support me to feel part of a learning community, that they feel more productive during the retreat compared to regular studying, that they make significant progress on their work or assignments during the session, and that having a lunch included positively contributes to the overall experience. As you can see, they are very positive about the lunches. They are also very positive about it giving them that dedicated space and that it being a really conducive, focused environment. Slightly lower down with learning community, but it's still massively up there with an average of 4.9, as well as feeling more productive, and then slightly lower again there with making significant progress on their work or assignments. But I think this really shows that the students find it incredibly helpful, and it's something that I'm going to draw out in some more feedback in a second that they actually don't really get anywhere else. So in general, this is a kind of a summary of our student feedback. So we asked them for testimonials and feedback, and this is what they came back with. They said that they were enjoyable and motivating and provide an encouraging, quiet space. That it's a really different atmosphere to other methods of study because it's more formal and motivating, that they like using the breaks to be able to socialise with their peers, and that it was good to have positive peer pressure or accountability to support their focus on work. They said that it helped them with goal setting and reflection, that the quiet space, actually, one of the main things is that they say it's really hard to find a quiet space to study on campus. Even if they go up to the forum, even if they go into a quiet study room, it's always noisy. So they felt that this was one of those spaces they could actually find that would be guaranteed to be quiet. Minimise the possibility of distractions, allowed for them to make good progress on their assignments and their exam prep. But it also gave them those things to do with support we were talking about, so they could share advice and experience, they could make new friends. They felt less alone when they were struggling with loads of big deadlines, and they felt like they were looked out and cared for by staff as an individual, because we knew them all. We took the time and the effort to get to know their names of the people that were turning up, and we asked them how they are. So we're mapping these back again. Woohoo! Those 3 things that we were saying that are really difficult, that are challenges with large programs: community, outcomes, and support. And you can see again, as was shown in the literature that we were looking at about focus writing retreats, actually our feedback really reflects this as well, that they are getting a sense of community, a community of learning from these sessions, that they are increasing their engagement, that is giving them a space to feel like they can be actively engaged without distractions, and that they feel like they make good progress on their work. And it feels like they are supported both from their peers and from staff. I promise you, I'm not going to read through all of these, but you wait, there's another 3 pages of them. But the students were incredibly, incredibly helpful, and honestly were so positive about these sessions that I couldn't not put their feedback in. So what I will say is, if you would like to read this feedback in more detail, I will very happily send the slides to anyone, but I'm just going to pull out some key things that I think were really important, and these are the students' own words. So things like, it was really helpful to have a designated time to work silently on university work and not have any distractions. Being surrounded by others working created a productive atmosphere, which made me focus on those around, made me match the focus on those around me and concentrate better. We have a student that attends who has ADHD, And they found that it really helped them with focusing on tasks, that productive atmosphere was creating that pressure that they needed to work, and that they actually would love to see more of these writing retreats in universities. Some of them waxed lyrical about how great the lunches were. So the lunch being a really good incentive to come and also to look forward to. So once they've been working really hard for 2 hours, they know they're going to go and get some free food. They're going to know that they're going to meet more people on their course and they can get to know them better. And again, this has just reiterated this student saying they would definitely attend these again and that they wish that they had gone to more over the year. We also had this idea that they were really useful for specific things, so helped with exam preparation, tackling assignments, and that they provided a different atmosphere than what they were used to. Again, more comments about how they enjoyed the sessions, that they provided necessary space to focus on work, encouraged goal setting and reflection. The lunch break was the sessions were greatly fulfilling and contributed to shaping their view of what it means to be productive. So if we go back to think about what that literature was saying, that actually focused writing retreats not only are great whilst you're there, it can influence your skills of how to be productive, how to set goals, how to manage your time, because you're developing that in a really conducive and inclusive environment. We had some interesting feedback about how we can improve them. So one student wanted them to run for even longer, and also suggested having icebreaker activities at lunch, because sometimes, because the cohort's so big, depending on who you get, they might not know anyone. So they wanted to be able to get to know people more easily, which is fantastic. And we're going to put this in place as we move forwards. And again, this idea that it supports learning how to accumulate small goals, that the positive peer pressure helps them to focus on their work, and that it stops them from getting distracted. And this student actually suggested they would like this to be extended even further across the business school, because students share the same optional modules. So they feel like they can work together on the same assignments. And you might look at this one and say, oh, down the bottom there, Sian, why does it say BSc Psychology? You do not lead the BSc Psychology. I do not lead the BSc Psychology. However, we had this student who was very good friends with one of the students on our course, who they both came and they said to me, Sian, would you mind if we come and attend the event, and come and attend the end of term event, but also come and attend the focused writing retreats? And I was like, yeah, no worries, feel free to come, because actually we're creating an inclusive environment. So this student has no knowledge of how the business school runs, yet this was their feedback. So they felt that the focused writing retreat was revolutionary to maximising their productivity. They only wished that they'd managed to get to more of them over the year. Having a set schedule where we meet with like-minded people similarly determined to reach their work goals created a unique environment that is far superior to the usual study sessions I would have had in the library or in other campus study spaces. They felt that they usually got more done in the 90 minutes of working than they would have done if they'd spent 3 or 4 hours independently in the library, or even 5 to 6 hours studying with friends. They were so positive, they couldn't rave about it enough, and they could only imagine how much other students would also benefit from it. And then this comment at the bottom is not just about the focused writing retreats, but it's about having a suite of events that means that you get to know your students personally. So she said, checking in with us individually and making sure we felt motivated and empowered to do our very best is very refreshing to see amongst educators. Knowing someone within your department is looking out for you and cares for you does a lot for students' academic performance. You're no longer a number or a face in a packed lecture hall, you're an individual. Belonging and academic performance are highly interlinked, and Sian utilised this to get the best out of us. And I think that these sessions, these focused writing retreats, really are the space to be able to develop this, because students will want to come. And this is not to be blowing my own trumpet, this is me just highlighting how important things like this are. I was privileged enough to be nominated for the Academic Excellence Award at the Teaching Awards this year, and the focused writing retreats and programme events were actually mentioned in that nomination. So the nomination, this is some of the detail it included. She also organises focused writing retreats that encourage students and staff to focus on a specific piece of work for an allotted amount of time. These have hugely helped my productivity and progress on assignments, whilst making me feel more of a part of a community. At such a big university, and considering the size of business cohorts, it's easy to feel lost in the crowd. However, Sian's events this year have helped improve my motivation, mental health, and have made me feel more connected to the university, creating a safe and inclusive atmosphere. So I think that just really shows the difference that program level events can make for our students. We can positively impact their university journeys through using these inclusive communities and these inclusive events to really support them. However, it's not all rosy and sunny. There are some challenges with running these events. The first one is attendance levels. So far, we have had a maximum of 18 students attend. The whole cohort is actually invited via email. So if we go back to my student numbers, that's around 1,000 students that are invited and 18 turn up. However, what I would say is it would not be manageable if 100 people turned up, realistically. So the plan would be, if these grow much bigger, what we would need to do is introduce a booking system if more attend, and then probably run more scheduled sessions across the week so students can pick and choose where they want to come. The second challenge is getting the word out. Students quite often do not read their emails. So getting them to see something like this is really difficult. And what I've learned from feedback from students is put in the title of your email, free lunch. Apparently that tends to help. But I was about to skip on to my next slide, Shushan. Something that's also tricky is ensuring that timings work for students. So when you're trying to schedule for students, there's like 1,000 students across 1 million modules, it feels like, it's really difficult to schedule times to make it so it works for the majority of them. Timetabling rooms can be really difficult. As you probably all know, we struggle for space here in the university, so finding space and time to actually have a room that you can book can be tricky. At the minute, we're incredibly lucky that there is funding for free lunch. However, in the university climate currently, who knows how long that's going to last for? And as you've seen, the free lunch is actually a really big positive for the students that want to come. So I hope that we don't lose them, but I do think that might be a challenge moving forwards. And then also the range of students attending. So actually, we mostly have final year students who come. Quite often it's final years who've been on a year with industry experience. So they are really focused on working, they've gone away, they've got these skills, and then they've come back and they're like, oh, this is a great initiative. We have had some second years come, so we had a group of maybe 4 or 5, but I have never had a first year attend one of these sessions as so far. So we'll see how that goes moving forwards. But what seems to help so far and what we've been looking at are things like actually inviting students personally. If you know a student, you walk up and you say, oh, hey, have you thought about coming to our focus writing retreat we've got on Thursday? They're really great for this. Then they're more likely to come. I did this with a range of our student ambassadors and a student offer holder visitor day. They're all working and I'm just like, hey, are you coming to the focus writing retreat next week? Bring all of your friends. I literally say it like that in case you can't tell. So it's about asking them specifically, making them feel like they are invited and that they should come really makes a difference. It's about those meaningful relationships between us and the students. I also asked them to share it with their friends in the cohort, and it's actually been snowballing through word of mouth. When they realise how useful the session is, how much they find it helps them, they then go and say to their friends, hey, come on, you should come too. And it's just been growing because of that. I recommend sending specific emails about the event. Don't mash it into a thing about loads of other stuff, and also sending a reminder email the day before with the words free lunch in the title if you're giving them a free lunch. Also trying to make sure you're timetabling it for times when most of the cohort are free or at least not in compulsory modules, and do really highlight the benefits that it's about having that quiet time and space to work on their work but feel like you're not on your own. Really push that free lunch. So what are our future plans with these sessions? So we are hoping to look at testing the focus writing retreats further, gathering some more data and evidence to look at how great they are. We're going to look at potentially exploring co-facilitation of the sessions with students. So maybe get some students in as part of an SBP, or it would be an SCP, a student camp partnership even, a role to come and support programme events more widely, to try and get it to feel like they are co-creating these things. And then I think that will also hopefully increase engagement levels. I'm also looking to test them at a module level, so actually timetabling them as every other week, bi-weekly sessions in my postgraduate module employment relations. So they have an assessment where they have to reflect on discussions that happen in the sessions, the lecture sessions. So my intent is for them to use the focus writing retreats with no free lunch we'll see how this goes. We're basically timetabling instead of giving free lunch, so that they can then use that time to write their reflections for their assignment. So I should also say there are different ways of running these types of sessions and body doubling. So we use them personally as a facilitated space. I'm going to say, if you go and look up this terminology, you're probably not going to find it because it's my terminology, but we use them as a facilitated space. So students and staff are working on their own tasks alongside each other, but with a really clear structure. You can then have mentored spaces. So this is where a mentor provides actual support on the work that's being done as and when required. So there's a bit more input from the lecturer. That's actually how the postgraduate module pilot's going to run. So I will be there giving them advice and support when they need it. Another really good example of this is the PRP mentored writing spaces that are run by the Aspire team for us as staff here at the university. And you can also run them as co-working spaces. So that's where there's less structure and people kind of just work alongside each other with some more loose goal setting. If you want to check out, there is a guide for body doubling that Lena, who is one of our equality, diversity and inclusion advisors and leads the Neurodiversity Cafe, has written about body doubling. So please do feel free to go and check that out. Happily send anyone the link if they want to have it. So as I knew, we're not going to do the taster because Sian talks too much, but here is your opportunity to ask me any questions about what we're doing and how we've been testing this and focused writing retreats. What I would say is you're also very welcome to come and join us in one of these retreats if you want to see how they run. All you need to do is pop me an email and you are most welcome to have an invite and come and see how you find it. Or I'm happy to run a taster session for any educators online or in person to see how they run and how they work. So I'll say, if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to pop it in the chat or pop your hand up and you can speak to me out loud because you've heard my voice enough.